Hi everyone, welcome to Blue Heron Hill. I'm Sue in the garden and sitting in my brassica bed. Now normally at this time of year we are almost to the first part of July, and by now I've harvested these, or at least most of these. Broccoli in particular, I've started to let some of those wonderful tender little side shoots developed after I cut the broccoli crown off. But my broccoli I have maybe 2 or 3 that are starting to head up. I have cabbage, you can see there's a cabbage down here. I have a couple more back here. I'm very disappointed in the size and the time it's taken to harvest. Don't know what the particulars are. It's not like we've had a real hot summer so far. We did have a few days in the 90s, but more or less it's been fairly average. We did fortunately have a lot of rain last night. Yesterday, over in a 24-hour period, we had about an inch of rain. It wasn't torrential, but it was nice and steady at times, and so it made it an excellent opportunity for the garden to soak up that moisture very naturally. So very happy about that. But I do have to get this brassica bed harvested, because already I am thinking about my fall brassica crop that has to go in, and that's what we're going to talk about after I show you a few things that are going on in this brassica bed. Let's harvest this one cabbage. Okay, not too bad. It does have some munchies going on here, but strip off those outer leaves and it will be good enough for whatever I'm going to make it into. I'm thinking sauerkraut. So, but that's all I have in the cabbage department, just that one. I'm going to be waiting for these other ones. I will leave this one plant here, and I may get some little tiny cabbages starting to sprout off of this central stem. And if that happens, it's a bonus harvest for me. If not, some of these leaves, these will go to the chickens and the other animals here. So let me show you what's going on with the broccoli. Now, here's a broccoli head just starting out. So I'm really hoping that's going to, over the next week or 10 days or so, to really head up into a nice head. But most of my other broccoli plants, for instance, this one right here, there's nothing there at all. Not even a tiny little head developing. But I do on this one here, if you can see. This is a small, but this one has to be harvested right now, because already you can tell that some of those little flowerets are starting to burst open. And even though it's fairly tight, but it's still very small. I'm going to pick that one though. Now this is a fairly nice one here. You'll see I have some side shoots coming off of this already. Now I'm not sure the variety. I thought I usually plant Waltham, and this has never happened with that. I've always gotten a nice big head to start, and then on down the line I'd get some side shoots. Let me take a look and see if we have anything else that's even coming close. The foliage is just glorious, and it looks so healthy. Here's another one, but I do have a head developing way down there, which is a good news here. Next door is a cabbage here, and as you can see, another head is developing right there, and on this one I have another head developing right here. So that's fairly good news with more cabbage there, but rather on the small side. So this is not a total loss. And for sure, all of these leaves are greens that you can even eat these. Now, I am not a big greens person. Most of my greens go for additional feed for my animals. So there's never a loss at Blue Heron Hill for a crop that didn't meet my expectations. So it's a good thing that I do have a few that are still coming. I hadn't seen these before, so this is great. Our weather is scheduled to be a little on the cooler side, I think, not such high temperatures, so that will be good for brassicas. But what I wanted to talk about today, as I mentioned before, is a fall crop. Now is the time to start thinking and actually actively doing if you want to have a fall brassica crop. In my case, I will do broccoli and I will do cabbage, and I may even do some cauliflower this time for in the fall. But you've got to start now, even though you're thinking it's way too hot. But you've got to start adding up your numbers and counting back on your calendar. So first of all, you need to know what your first average frost date is. Who wants to think about cooler weather in this glorious summer day that I have right now? But my average first frost date in the fall is mid-October. Now, that's just an average, so it's just a guesstimate almost by the powers that be. I get mine from the Farmer's Almanac. Now things have been updated a little bit, so be sure you check on that. And most things have changed for a longer season now. Things seem to be getting a little bit warmer the further north you go. So check that out. So what we have to do is now start counting backwards to find out when I need to start these tiny little seedlings to grow up to be a big, beautiful plant like this and give me a nice head of broccoli or cabbage or cauliflower. So let's do some figuring out. Okay, got a few notes here. Now I went and I looked up. Now, on average, my broccoli takes about 60 days to harvest. So I have to find my first average frost date, start counting back. So I'm counting back 60 days from that frost date. But I take that with a grain of salt. So I want to start harvesting these the beginning of October through the mid of October. Now, it's a brassica, it can stand frost, and so you could be more than likely harvesting these in November in my zone. So 60 days is the first number to start with. Now the 60 days starts when you first put your transplant into the ground. So you have to then say, how many days am I going to have that transplant started before I put it in here? And generally that's about 6 to 8 weeks. Then you also need to think about how long is it going to take this seed that I plant in my seed starting mix to germinate. And with broccoli and cauliflower and some brassicas, it takes a week to 10 days. So if you're going to add all of those up, and I did, and I just sort of averaged a few of those things, and I got about 109 days. So that would mean from me starting it with a seed in the ground all the way until I harvest it. So that's about 16 weeks on average. So if I start counting back, that will get me to somewhere around the end of June. Now we are the very end of June, so I need to get going. I've given myself a little leeway, so if something happens, then I'll be able to maybe throw in another round of seed and get another batch of seedlings started. It would be awfully nice if nurseries would think about gardeners and fall crops, but you don't find any nurseries or garden centers that actually start selling brassicas in July or August for gardeners that want a fall crop. So we have to do it ourselves. So get a piece of paper, get a calendar, start figuring out. If you're lucky enough, you still have a little bit of time to get those seeds into seed starting mix and started. I am going to be starting mine indoors. I don't want the hot days of summer impacting those little seedlings because they're not going to want to germinate if the weather is too hot. So that's what I'm going to be doing today, and I hope you will be also. Here's another specimen that I planted in April that is ready. This is Chinese cabbage. Isn't that lovely? Normally I tie it up like this and blanch it, so it blanches those inner leaves. But this is wonderful. You can stir fry this. You can shred it in salads, lettuce salads, or you can make a slaw out of it, which is what I like to do often. So Chinese cabbage. I do have issues with this in that the slugs just love it. But I managed to circumvent that quite successfully this year. I do have a couple left in the garden that I am saving for just a little bit longer. One was totally inundated, and this one was sitting right next to it, but look at how gorgeous that is. That is picture perfect. So go do your calculations. Get a pen and paper and a calendar and start calculating when you've got to start those brassica seeds so you can have a fall crop of brassicas. Fingers crossed that these few heads come up nicely, and I will amend this bed and replant the brassicas right back in here when they're ready to come out and be transplanted into the garden. So till the next time that we can go digging in the dirt, happy gardening. Bye.